Ballers, welcome back to Lies of P, where we are in the DLC. That's right, we flew yesterday because I had a way better time. My God, I cannot express to you how overjoyed I am when a company has a really solid base game, right? Despite the fact that some of you have taken away the criticisms I have over Lies of P's base game as like, oh, he hates the game, which is nowhere near what I said. I expressly said many times, I'm really enjoying the game, but it's got some faults. These are the faults. And then when they do their DLC, they're like, okay, where did we misstep? How do we fix it? What would be a better approach without going too far outside the lines we've painted for ourselves? And that's what they did. So far, anyway, that's what they did. That's what they did. And I am so happy, because what that means is like their next game, which seems to be Wizard of Oz is where they're pointing. It's going to be Wizard of Oz. And I love this idea of these Souls-like fairy tale mix-ups of just not sticking to Pinocchio and going in a different direction. They've learned all this. They were like, oh, okay, we kind of got sloppy here, made mistakes there. It's phenomenal because you can just see it happen, right? You can just see it happen. And it means that despite... This isn't like an I told you so. It's just, these problems exist. They did exist because they've changed it. They were like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that was kind of weak sauce. Let's fix that up. So let's go through it, because obviously we weren't in the DLC last time we spoke. We were actually coming up on a Simon. Big Simon. Did not take long to kill this. Like, I don't know, 5-6 pulls, something like that. 5-6 attempts. Mainly because it's an unusual fight coming off the back of Lax, which is easily the pinnacle boss I've fought so far in the entire game, including the DLC. Was so far ahead of everything else in terms of its design, its moveset, everything that fight has is more of that for sure. Simon Manus, which it turns out not to be the last boss of the base game, was okay. Like, very high grade. I would give it like a high B. It has its massive drawback is it's phase 1. I was like, I still to this day do not understand what the point of that phase 1 is, other than I feel they had the idea that we must have a phase 1 and phase 2 because we want to have this enormous mega creature in phase 2. How do we get there? I would have had an earlier fight. I would have done a bit of a Renoir situation, something like that from Expedition. I would have fought Simon earlier and dropped him into a vat, or had this creature start emerging as he leans away, something like that, just to avoid this very dull, very pointless phase 1 where he has like 5 moves and they're all really slow and they look like they came from one of the earlier bosses in the game. They just wanted the fancy, amazing transition into the fight proper, which was phase 2. Phase 2 was tricky, a little tricky. It was a little tricky. It had a lot of things going on with disruption, which instantly kills you if you get hit by them all. Lots of, I actually like the twist on this fight compared to the others, which was there was lots of, like, you need to get away now. You can't just be relentless, because there's so many opportunities to punish that boss, but you just can't, at least with what I found. I'm sure there's some perfect frames you can avoid the damage of whatever's going on. It had like huge hands coming out of the sky to grab you, huge area denials going on from that. Lots of things that were just far too many to normally avoid, at least in a progress pull. Like 20 disruption bolts coming at you. Lots and lots of things like that, which were like, oh God, I'm so tempted to attack. And I can't. I have to pull back and just wait and chill and be awesome. But yeah, nice fight. Again, high B. Don't dislike it, but yeah, it had some errors with it, certainly compared to Lax. And most things will now be compared to Lax because I know what they're capable of. That's why. And then we moved on to the ending of the game, which was Geppetto kind of being a jerk and wants my heart to turn me into a real boy. And I was like, I don't really trust you, bro, to make me into a real boy, to bring back Carlo and things like that. So I just said no, which then turns into another boss fight against the nameless puppet. Obviously, I don't know whether it's just a tongue-in-cheek reference to Nameless King. It's obviously a very, very, very different fight. But this thing was really fun and very brutal. Very, very brutal. But was closer to a fight like Lax than Manus was by many ways. I think this is a boss that maybe is an optional extra boss at the end of the game, kind of like Moon Presence, in terms of if you don't make that choice, you don't get this boss fight. I naturally made this choice. I was not pushed to make this choice. It was my choice to go with. But I had a great time with this fight as well. Really nice. I was leaning more to being concerned that it was going to fall into the has too many moves situation, because there were some moves that it could do that were very, very simple to counter and punish. And then it had some that were like, I don't know, 10 swing combos that we could throw in there and kill you. The main aspect of this, and will be a continuing theme going forward, is that every hit it does basically kills you. And nearly every hit it does is like a good 2/3 of your HP. Unless it's like a string of little ones, but they stagger you and stun you and flinch you so much that you're probably not getting out of it at the back end anyway. But I had a great time with this fight. I was actually surprised I killed it. And that's when I realized something, is one thing I have missed in this game that I was looking for, and I'm always looking for, is that like, oh god, we need to knuckle down onto these boss fights. Nothing in the game has taken me more than like an hour, maybe. That one that's like, okay, this is like half a day, you know? Like, this is big deal time. This is time to really knuckle in, learn absolutely everything, get everything perfect. I haven't had that, like, die, kill feeling yet, where the heart rate starts spiking. Haven't had that in Lies of P yet, but perhaps we will now, because with the end of the game there, it was time for the DLC. Now, I'm going to extend an olive branch here, although you won't like it. I said at the start of the DLC when we got there, which is time travel. We're going back in time to Krat Zoo, where we're going to re-meet some characters. I'm going to talk about characters we met in the base game, but there's obviously going to be new characters and new things that were happening during this period of time. I was like, right, I'm going to pay attention to the story, because you guys keep moaning like it's so much more story-driven game. True, but I mean, it's not what I was looking for, but I'll pay attention to the story. I gave it like, I don't know, 4 hours. I think 4 hours in of following the story, I did stop then. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I just really dislike how the story is presented. I just to comment on that, because it's not like this game is unique in this way. I actually felt this way even in some Expedition 33 stuff. One thing I really, really don't like in gameplay heavy games, where I'm loving the gameplay, like I'm absolutely having a great time with the gameplay, is when the story stuff turns into just huge pauses and regular pauses in the gameplay. That's what frustrates me. Like it's one of those things that I just do not like, that pacing. It's a pacing issue is what it is. Especially if there's a lot of fluff in there, which is you can read. So essentially what would happen is you would have, like, if you were doing all the story in the DLC, you would have maybe 5 or 6 minutes of gameplay, and then you would get a note, and usually that would be followed by 2 or 3 other notes, newspaper clippings, things like that, which could be 1 page, 2 pages, 4 pages sometimes of just paragraphs and paragraphs, and in there might be some snippet of relevance to what's going on. Often it's like backstory and world building stuff, and I really just dislike that in general. Like, that's just my personality. It's the way it is. I do not like being constantly hamstrung from playing the game and focusing on getting from A to B and exploring this area and doing that. That's where I'm having fun. And so, yeah, about hour 4, I was like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I've tried, but I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed. I get it. We're hunting down Romeo. We've got the legendary stalker. Leah's going this way. We've got now Veronique's in here and all these kinds of things. Like, I get it. It's adding some personality and a little bit of history to the characters, but I just really don't care. I care about the boss fights. I care about the arenas. I care about the layouts. That's what I care about. I care about the pathing. That's the stuff I'm interested in. But going into DLC, as I said, getting that out of the way, so much better. So much better. Not perfect. There's a couple of examples of that. Not perfect, but so much better. First of all, the level design. They clearly took the feedback is that your game is really linear. It is. The base game of Lies of P is extraordinarily linear. It's so hard to feel like you've deviated from the path, because even when there is, say, 2 routes to arrive at one location, they're very close to each other. And ultimately, you can they're very short, so you can kind of tell, oh, that was just the end of the other street. Oh, I see where we're going here. Very, very linear. This one is still got to get you going forward, and I think people confuse linear here a little bit with like, oh, so you want it so you can stray off for like 4 hours, but then you've not got where you're supposed to go. No, but you want a logical, explorable world where there's all types of extra little bits of content all over the place. But ultimately, once you've explored, you will end up going where you're supposed to go. Or you've ended up going the way you're supposed to go in the first place, but there was a ton of stuff you missed if you went back and explored all over the place. That's what they've done here in a much, 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 much better way. This is one of those, and I like to see this in these kinds of games, is like if I was a speedrunner and I was looking for the optimal route, I could probably get through these areas in probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But when you play naturally, it might be an hour and a half because there's so much extra stuff going on. And going down this route is actually a good investigation with a good reward. That was something I was also missing in the base game, is often if you did try and go off the beaten track and maybe you did find a big monster, often the reward was like an extra piece of souls, like a souls crystal or a shot put or something like that. And you're like, okay. All right, sure. You know, here's another summon thing. You've already got like 1,000 of these because you're not summoning for any of the bosses. All right, which a lot of people won't do, you know. Occasionally you would get a big enemy with a quartz, but that became very predictable by the end because they kind of wanted you to get it. I will say that people are pointing out is like there's a huge amount of missions and deliverables in the base game that I missed. I explored quite a lot. If you check the VODs, there weren't many areas I didn't go to, but I think a lot of it was locked behind like conversations and story, which I was obviously done with them. So that's fair. I loved these areas. The open world of the zoo, all looped back properly. It's like they actually just looked at a real building and not an illogical, crazy building like they did with the city hall in the base game, where it's like, okay, why would this work this way? Why would one of the routes be like up on these weird rafters and through this door? Instead, they looked at a real building or a real zoo and were like, oh, there's all sorts of places you can go. Yeah, there totally is. You might end up you're trying to get from A to B, but like if you go this way, this totally works. The first wake up, I'm glad they had a bit of fun. Like kangaroos were really fun. There was a good chunk of gameplay before we even got to a boss. I'd say it's probably like 2 hours of DLC before you hit a boss, and like 5 checkpoints to get there, 5 bonfires. I was like, this is pretty wacky. So when I finally got through that, I will give a shout out to an area which I feel from my live stream is very notorious, which was the Pit of Death, where they put 2 giant elites in there. There's like an elite kangaroo, there's an elite monkey, and then there's a bunch of other kangaroos, and then they just put these monkeys up on the monkey area in the sky who were just throwing poop at you. That was hell. But it also kind of made sense. And I was fine with it. See, that I'm not angry with. That is not just a random box just haphazardly stuffed with enemies. This makes sense. These animals are down in this viewing area of a zoo, and it's the monkey area. So yes, they would be up there. I was like, this actually makes sense. It's hard, but it makes sense, and I just had to cautiously go through there. And at that point, they give me one of the first DLC weapons I got, which was a bow and arrow. I was really surprised by this, and I played with it for a little while, thinking, this is actually kind of fun, but I prefer melee, but I like the idea that now you can actually do some bow and arrow gameplay. I wish they had a free aim mode, but they didn't. So moving through that was great, and then we got our first boss, which was a big crocodile. I can't remember its name. I think it's like Apex Predator or something like that. Massive crocodile. Really nice. Killed it on like the 3rd or 4th pull, and I was like, okay, we're in the DLC now. Got a DLC boss. Remind me of Sanctuary Guardian, actually, from the Souls 1 DLC. Nice and simple, very clear what was going on. Great animations. Overly large. The camera was definitely very questionable in certain areas when you have these overly large bosses in a relatively small environment, especially ones that push you into walls. But not too bad. Continues the trend in Lies of P of trash doing 4x the damage of bosses in order to make that work. That's kind of what they've done. But a really nice opening boss to cement, now you're in the DLC, now you've killed a boss, and now you're moving forward. From then on, they got a really good regular pace of bosses. It was like, here's the big introduction, and now we're going to have regular boss encounters going on, and mini-bosses, which made it great. Going through the circus, actually having mini-games was really interesting. Went to the circus, they gave you, if you killed certain bigger enemies, you got carnival coins, and then you could take part in little mini-games that were around, with either a little mini-boss in there, or a whack-a-mole type game, which was okay. It was okay. Obviously, the game isn't super conducive to that design, but they had a lot of leeway in how many you had to get. It wasn't a lot, because the game doesn't work well with these, and they made them not lock on. But a little bit of fun distraction. I was like, oh, I'm at a carnival and I get mini-games. That makes sense. This is good. This is good stuff. This is really cool. Who was our next boss? I'm trying to think right now who the next boss was. It was either Veronique, But I don't think it was. Might have been. Was it Veronique? Wasn't the Two-Face guy? I think we killed 4 bosses total, so you'll forgive me. I forget which the second boss was. Because the next 2 were so much more stand out to me. The first one was Veronique. I love this fight. It was just, she's going crazy, she's going mad, and how better to represent somebody who's losing her goddamn mind than have her just be the most vicious, brutal, nasty, just smashing you into the floor every single step of the way. Like, she killed me in like 2 hits, and you just felt like you were trading back and forth with just battle after battle after battle, just swing after swing after swing. But she was very vulnerable as well. If you got her, if you managed to tag her back, she would stagger, she would flinch. Again, much more consideration to the balance of this fight. It's like, yeah, we're gonna have this really nasty, brutal, attacking fight, but at the same time, if you do land those counters, then you deserve to be rewarded for it. So far, I haven't seen any weird riposte shenanigans happening, where they're like, no, you know, we're going to do something weird, twist and riposte. I hope that's just gone, because it was nonsense. You're not playing by the rules of your own game. It felt a bit cheap in the few times they did it in the base game. This time, so far, none of that happening. I was like, that's cool, man. That is really cool. If you've landed it, you should be rewarded for it, and I'm okay with that. At this point, I decided to switch up weapons quite a bit. Oh, not at this point, actually. And then we then moved through a big frozen area where they kind of just got nasty for the sake of being nasty. I think the particular highlight of this, there was a couple of rooms like this where they were just being cruel. I can forgive it for being overly nasty on occasion, so because the rest of the DLC isn't like that, at least so far. This room in the mines, my god. So they have probably, I think, something like 10 enemies. They have like 4 miners, 2 alarm bots, 2 buzzsaw dogs, and 2 actual like stone gathering robots, which seem to be like picking up the stone that the miners have stoned. So you've got all those enemies. And then on the cliffside, which you can't access, they have 2 more of the stone robots, and their attack is to throw big rocks at you that were doing a good quarter, if not more, of your HP per hit. And then they strategically positioned the enemies, so if you were trying to run through to get to the ones that were throwing stuff at you while you were trying to throw stuff down on the bottom floor, they were blocked by position of a buzzsaw dog that you could not get past. You had to like run up to it, but it would take a while to get up on its animation, and then you would have to bait it one way, and by then other things have attacked you, and there's another dog behind you. And I died several times in this room. Several times, because it was just horrendous. And the only way to beat it was to kind of just chunk your way through it. And they know it as well, so they've made this very cruel room, but there's literally a shortcut if you manage to get through it once, because it's a small room. If you get through it once, they give you a shortcut to never do it again. So they were clearly just like, yeah, this room sucks so badly. It sucks. We know, though. We're going to let you skip it. If you do it once, that's fine. Do it one time, we'll immediately give you a shortcut so you never have to do it again, because it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So from that, I can be like, all right, you have to do it once. Okay. All right. Okay. But they still have that technique to them. But working through all these experimentations that the alchemists have been running on all humans and things. Again, a lack of puppets here. I was hoping for more puppets. We've had animals, a little bit of puppets, and then back to sort of zombies. A couple of nasty rooms in there, but basically the big boss at the end here was the Two-Faced Overseer, where we met the Tracker. This is probably the best voice actor I've heard in this game so far, at least for me. What a smooth, velvety voice this guy spoke with. And this is adding something to the game, because you have to summon him during the fight with the Two-Faced Overseer to progress his story. And so I was like on the fence, like, are you guys going to just really bitch at me, essentially, because we've summoned this guy, despite the fact he's given us this item and it's clearly part of his mission? And thankfully, a lot of people who had already played the DLC were like, no, it's good, dude. This is like a story-driven moment. You can fight this thing without a summon. Because I was like, if it's a summon, people are just going to moan that we're doing this. But no. It's well worth it. He then comes back to the hotel, and he does all kinds of things. And I was like, all right, cool. So we summoned him. In many ways, like, some people see summons as cheating. I don't know how you guys feel about this. Often when I add another player, if you summon for... I have never summoned another player for a Dark Souls game, but I have when I've been looking to get souls and things like that. Being someone people could summon to kill certain bosses. I remember, particularly in Dark Souls 2, I can't remember what I was after. I was trying to buy like some weapon upgrade materials or something. I needed a ton of souls. So I just hung out, and I think I killed Nashandra. I think I killed Nashandra for a lot of people, because people were struggling with Nashandra. And I just left myself there and got summoned a bunch of times to kill Nashandra for people. For me, though, if I'm if there's another player in the arena or an NPC, yes, it's easier. I think the overall message is it is easier, because the boss is going to be attacking them for a period of time, and you get this sort of free time. But with giant bosses with huge swings, I often find it a hindrance, because the bosses are not attacking you, but their swings can still get you, because a lot of them cover massive arcs. And I often struggle with other people in the arena, because the unpredictability of what the boss is doing, and sometimes it can just switch on a dime and start attacking you and you're not expecting it, and it's also kind of miserable, because you generally try to put out like massive strong attacks and chain stun it, all those kind of things. I actually find it very awkward to play. Sometimes I find it harder than if it was just attacking me and I can control what the fight is doing, but when I have no control over what the fight is doing, I find that very, very hard. Anyway, we killed this, it's the two-faced dude. Brought him down, which then unlocked the story mode for that. So I don't have much to say on that fight, because we did use a summon, so I'm not going to like rate it or anything like that. I'm definitely thinking we killed another boss. I don't know if Bex checks it. Maybe we didn't. I don't know. There were 3 or 4 bosses through the DLC. But what I can say is, what a joy. What an absolute joy. What a good step up in quality and care and attention to detail than there has been in the base game. It's so apparent to me. It's very, very like, this is what I was hoping for. I was really hoping. It's like, you've got the basis. Like, Lies of P base game is very, very good, but it definitely has obvious pitfalls to me in terms of where they went. Certainly the mid game. Some people talk to me about this. What do I think happened? For me, what I can see with Lies of P's base game is they had a good, solid foundation for the start of the game. Like, Krat itself, going to the puppet parade, these puppets have taken over, all that stuff. And then they kind of had the end game in mind. It's like, we're going to have this big castle, which is going to lead to this epic fight. We've got the ending of the story. He's going to get all the ergo, and he's going to produce this thing, and we're going to have Simon Manus, and then there'll be a fight with Geppetto afterwards, and that'll be the twist in a Bloodborne style and other game style. The mid-game, though, I think they kind of had a weaker idea of what the mid-game was, but they needed a mid-game, otherwise the game would be done, in 10 hours or whatever, and that's not a value proposition that people want. And so they kind of stuffed a lot of stuff into the mid-game, which is a little careless, a little sloppy, and a little childish. And that shows for me in the gameplay there. Like, the mid-game, I think the mid-game really soured me a lot and dragged the game down. It just isn't there. Like, it's not got care and attention to detail. A lot of it is big open areas or very simple. Artistically, it might look complicated, like the wooden village, but it's just one pathway that leads up a cliff. That's it. And in there, they're just like, oh, we'll put cannons on there, and then we'll just throw some big elites down in the swamp, and then there's a swamp, because of course there's a swamp, and we'll just put enemies all over the place, and ambushes left, right, and center, right, to keep people engaged. And it's just like, no, there's no care, there's no logic gone into how this is working. There's just people dangling constantly by their fingertips all over this town, which... on occasion, sure, but like, this isn't Path of Exile where you walk into an area and they all crawl up the sides. That's not what we're looking for here. It's not got that logic to it that adds flavor to what's going on. So that's what I think happened. But the DLC, so far, just so much care and attention to detail. I don't know where the story goes. I'm following in general. Like, we've got the Blood Artist. We're going to the Rose Estate. I saved a weird doll. And ultimately, I think we're going to have a big showdown with Princess Leia, who's roaming around. But what a thumbs up. So much better. See you maybe for the conclusion. I don't know how long the DLC is. I have no idea. Maybe tomorrow's the last one. I don't know. Bye.